What's going on, guys? Welcome back to day 6 of Form Check Week. Again, we are using this week to try to make our way through these form checks. Dylan and I did the math today. We got about between 350 and 400 email submissions currently waiting, which translate to, what did you say, Dylan? 80 weeks? Yeah, so we have like the next 4 years of form checks all ready to go. We will probably at some point have to switch to maybe doing this via some sort of lottery style system or something. We'll figure it out. Obviously, we're not just gonna keep people waiting for years to get to their form checks. But the unfortunate side of this channel gaining traction and us gaining more momentum and subscribers and more submissions is that obviously things pile up. So our initial let's get to everybody thing might have to change sometime in the near future. Until we figure that out, we're gonna keep going chronologically. By the end of this week of videos, by the conclusion of Form Check Week, we're gonna be into January of this year, this current year, which is great. So that part of this whole sort of experiment has worked. And I just want to give a really big thank you to everybody who's bought one of our new shirts or a hat or downloaded the free program or purchased the Form Check service. All those things are available on our website, calgarybarbell.com. And thank you guys so much for all the support you've shown us this week. That's why we do this. And we're glad you guys are enjoying these videos. I am exhausted, but here I am. Here Dylan is, and we're doing this for you guys. So thank you for continuing to support us and reciprocate that work we put into this channel. Without any more blabbering from me, we're gonna get right down to it. Our first video submission comes from Jay. Now, Jay submitted some bench, some deadlifts, and some squats. We're gonna go through his bench first and foremost, and then we'll touch on squats and deadlifts. Those are mostly okay. So on his bench press, you can see here a little bit of a dip into the chest at the bottom of the range of motion. Again, I prefer a much tighter pause position, so I would try and work on lightly touching your chest, not letting that bar sink, and specifically not letting the bar drop the last half-inch to inch range of motion, making sure that we're in control of it through the entirety, especially that very critical last little bit of the range of motion. The other thing that I want to comment on real quick is your bar path. It's a little bit inconsistent. Now, this side angle for a bench press is really great because we can see what happens with the bar path. Ideally, what we want to see is we want to see the bar come back and then up. What we're seeing on a number of Jay's benches is up and then back, or up and then back and then up. We're not seeing the bar come back over the shoulders early enough in the lift on some of these. Again, consistency is a big thing in any lift. The more consistently you can perform the lift, the better you can identify those pieces that are working and not working, and either cultivate and really reinforce the good things and start to eliminate and remove the things that aren't working. So let's try to get a little bit more consistent with the touch and a little bit more consistent with the bar path. As for Jay's deadlift, fairly solid. We're seeing a little bit of the hips rising as you initiate the movement. That would be the one thing I would change, is try to keep your hips a little bit lower as you initiate the lift. Try not to let them come up as you start, but other than that, pretty smooth in the deadlift. And the squat, we're getting slightly overextended. A little bit of that, a little bit of breaking that brace that we talk about a fair bit on the channel, trying to tuck those ribs down on top as part of how we're bracing the upper back or the thoracic spine. So let's work on trying not to arch too hard into the bar, specifically as you descend. Our next submission comes from Adam. Now, Adam sent in some deadlifts originally, and as you can see, his back's getting pretty off on a number of these reps in terms of the extension that we try to cultivate and that we always preach on this channel. And you can see a little bit down the road, he fixed that. He changed it, and it looks really good. As far as Adam's bench press goes, it looks pretty solid to me. Don't really have much to say about it. But the last thing he sent in is his squat. Now we're gonna critique that a little bit. It looks like as we get into the last rep or two of this set, they seem particularly challenging, perhaps a little bit fatiguing, and we're noticing a tendency to shift forward in the bottom with the upper body. So a couple things I would look at adjusting potentially there are going to be bar position, hand position, grip width, things like that. I want you to take those aspects of your squat, play around with them a little bit, and see if you can find a position that's a little bit tighter. What's happening right now is that bar is pulling your torso forward, shifting your weight further towards your forefoot in the bottom of the squat as you start to fatigue. So if we can lock those lats or those shoulder blades a little bit tighter via any of those things that I just mentioned, grip width, bar position, hand position, then that's going to go a long ways for you. Because often when we're very fatigued and we're pushing these sort of high threshold reps, it's very closely mimicking the faults that are going to happen when we get a lot of weight on the bar. So we can often see parallels there. So let's try to tighten up those few aspects, and hopefully that helps you, man. Our next video is a deadlift submission from Travis, or Trav rather. And one thing that I'm noticing here, Trav, you said in your email that you've had a hard time finding a good deadlift, finding good deadlift mechanics. You feel a lot of it in your back, not a lot in the legs. And the biggest reason for this is that we can actively see from this angle, as you initiate the lift, one of the biggest things moving is your spine. So we can see the extensors of your back doing a lot of work as you try to arch into pulling the bar off the floor. We want to try to avoid that. What we want to do is we want to maintain rigidity and tightness through the trunk, and we want to force the legs and the hips to do the work. So a couple different things we can work on there. Number one, bracing patterns. So I always recommend trying out and doing regularly, especially as part of your warm-up for squats and deadlifts, the McGill Big Three. Now, if you don't know what the McGill Big Three are, they are the bird dog, the side plank, and the McGill crunch. You can Google those. There's a ton of examples of them. If anybody's interested, he put out a really great book called Back Mechanic that explains a lot of, for me, it explained a lot about injury in general. So that was a really, really good resource in terms of learning how to find pain-free movement and then expand on it. Those are the two biggest points, honestly. And those are what I recommend to anybody who comes to me with any sort of injury-related questions. But I digress. What we want to try to do is we want to try to hold that trunk stable, push the bar off the floor, don't think about pulling up on it. If you're seeing your back go like this and extend as you start the lift, you're loading up your extensors well beyond what they're meant to do. What we want to see is a nice neutral back angle and the legs and the hips doing all the work. So let's try to work on that. Continue filming yourself from the side and see if you can make those changes over time. Hopefully that helps you, buddy. We also have some deadlifts here from Chris Rosario. Now, Chris, the biggest things here are pretty similar to a number of things we've talked about before. We are losing, and part of it is that we're losing back extension off the floor. Part of it is that we're not setting enough back extension. And the other thing is that the hips are rising up as you initiate the movement. So we're losing a lot of position, and not only that, but we're not creating a good position to start off with. What I would try to get you to do is I would try to get you to learn to wedge yourself in against the bar harder, learn to pull the slack out of the bar, set an extended back, and be patient enough to maintain the position as you initiate the lift. I always say make sure you think about the first phase of the deadlift as a push and not a pull, because a lot of times when you start thinking about pulling on the bar, that's when those hips will shoot up, turns into a stiff leg deadlift. We want to try our very best to avoid that. One thing that I might get you to look at doing as an accessory movement is start doing some sumo deadlifts. That, for a lot of people, can be enough to allow you to create a good neutral spine position, neutral back angle, and then you can take that sort of movement learning and put it into your conventional deadlift, because now you know what a neutral back position feels like. Let's put it into your conventional deadlift. So maybe some sumo deadlifts would help. If not, just try to use those cues to create better positioning as well as maintain it off the floor. And our last video submission for today comes from Kyle Hughes. Now Kyle's doing what looks like a very 1 rep max squat here. And guys, it's really hard to tell much about technique with this kind of a video submission. So for anyone who's looking to submit from now on, I would recommend sets of 3 to 5 reps in the 75 to 85% range. Try and give me something where we're seeing a little bit of fatigue, a little bit of technique breakdown, but 1 rep maxes are often not necessarily super representative of the overall technical faults. Because anytime you get 95%, 98%, 100% on the bar, things are gonna go wrong. In some cases, I can diagnose this stuff. In other cases, it's just heavy. But anyways, getting back to Kyle's squat here, the biggest thing we're seeing is right as he hits the hole and starts to rebound out of the bottom, we're seeing a huge amount of extension in the back, the neck cranes back, and that's one thing that I would caution you with and try to get you to avoid even, is going into that sort of extreme extension. Goes back to kind of what Trav was doing where he's pulling with his back. This is kind of like squatting with your back, where you're trying to use your back to extend into the bar as opposed to maintaining neutral quality bracing and using the muscles to drive the movement that are the best at driving that movement. So that would be the biggest thing, is I would work on your bracing and work on maintaining your bracing under fatigue and heavy loads. Anyways, guys, that's it for this episode. Thanks again for tuning in. Thank you for your submissions. Thanks to everybody who's picked up some swag. If you guys are looking for any of our new apparel, if you're looking for online coaching, if you're looking for our form check service, check out calgarybarbell.com. It is the hub, the center of everything we're doing right now. We just revamped it. Dylan and I put a lot of work into the new website. Let us know what you think. See if you can find the Owen Wilson quote, and we'll see you guys in the next video.